Today I released an album. If you've clicked on any other video that I've ever made, you would know that I'm an ambient musician, so it may come as a surprise to you that the record I produced and engineered is a hip-hop album. 13 by True Hoods is a collaborative album between Manny III, Rose Throw, and myself, and it's the very first album that I or any of these guys have ever made. There's so much effort and heart that we each put into this record, and it's such a great picture of what the three of us love about hip-hop. Today, I want to share with you a little bit about my process in producing and mixing this record. First thing I'd like to talk about is sampling. For both of the original True Hoods EPs, I sampled everything using the vinyl and an SP404, which is very awesome and old school and is how like all of the classic hip-hop old school records were made. But this process comes with its challenges. For this album, I recorded everything directly into the SP404 Mark II, where you can capture samples directly using the USB-C connection to a laptop or phone. It makes it really easy to record like your WAV files and make it all really streamlined, but it also can capture just any audio coming from your device, like podcasts or shows on streaming or YouTube videos or whatever. It's unbelievably easy and creative, and it just speeds up the whole sampling process in a way that feels like organic. It feels good. To give you a look at what this process is like, I'm going to quickly sample some old jazz and show you my process of chopping up samples and figuring out an arrangement for a song. Alrighty, so right here I got the SP404. I've got a jazz sample going on sample 1 right here. Ooh, pretty. It's got kind of some weird stereo stuff going on, but that's fine. Ooh, there's a voice too. Alright, so that's the sample. So the first thing I'm going to do is take that and I'm going to pitch it down a little bit. Woo! Alrighty, and now, I think that's a good start point for the first start. So I'm going to copy this sample, put it on the second channel, and then start looking for a second chop. So for this process, kind of just look through all of this. Ooh, that's a good spot. Alright, so now alright, that's 2 chops. So I'm going to just keep doing this process over and over again until I have 6 chops. And then once we get those 6 chops, then I'll start sequencing them all together. So I'll make like a pattern that sounds good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or like 1, 3, 1, then 4 or something. And we're going to do that. So I'm just going to keep making these chops. Boom, copy this over to here. Working. And now, we take this, let's find another spot. Alrighty, so I think I've come to a pretty good spot with these. So I found these keyboard samples that are at the beginning of the sample, and then I also found these voice samples that I don't think I like. I think I have a good thing going with just these 3. So the tempo's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 4, 1, 2, dun, 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 yeah. Anyway, so that is essentially how I find the samples, how I chop them, and how I get them all together. So there we go. Next, I want to talk about drums. I feel like the introduction of drums into a record is the biggest difference between like ambient music and what you're going to hear on 13. Now the listener's perception of feel and rhythm is dictated by kicks and snares, which are pattern and ways for familiarity and also like physically getting a move while listening to the record. Essentially, I think drums are like what make you sway or dance when you're listening to music. For finding the right drum sound, I think the most important place to start is finding inspiration and really getting introspective about the qualities of the drum sound you want. Why does like one drum sound work for you and another one doesn't? Do you like ultra clean like pop rap drums or super dusty old school boom bap? Are you trying to make a lo-fi beat, or do you want like 808s for a really club sound? All these questions will inform what drums you're looking for in a major way. For sculpting the drum sounds for the records for 13, here are a few of the albums that really inform my perspective. Essentially, these are the type of drum sounds I'm interested in. When it comes to actually sourcing the drum sounds, I've been slowly acquiring and trying out drum sounds over the last 4 years, and finally have the sounds to a spot where I can express my ideas pretty naturally. As in terms of actually finding these, there's so many different individual creators and producers who make drum packs. I personally like everything I found from the Drum Broker site. There's a good mix of a lot of different styles and influences, but most are pretty old school and hip hop, which I like. I also know many folks who use Splice as well to source their drums, and if that works for you, that's also sick. Now, we're gonna jump back to the track that we were working on earlier to show you how I would add drums to that. Alrighty, so now we're gonna add some drums to this. I picked out a couple drums, but I just wanna show you all the drums I use are located here.
1.
And what I'm gonna do now is take these drums and make a loop out of them. So. Boom. Yeah, let's add some effects. Wrong effects. Yeah. Oh, that sounds so good. Alrighty, so it's at this point where I would take everything that I've worked on in here and essentially transfer it all over to a DAW where I can work with a little bit more control. But that's the process of sourcing drums and creating a beat from scratch and how that all goes right here. Lastly, I just want to go over mixing real quick. For mixing, I use a program called Luna. Luna is essentially Pro Tools with a couple upgrades. The first thing is that you can have these summing channels. I'm using an API summing, but there's also Neve summing. It's built like a mixing console, so all of your individual tracks go to groups, and those groups go to the master, and on all of those groups and the master, you can put the summing that just, I don't know, it adds a little bit of saturation, it fattens things up, and blends them together in a really nice way. On top of that, you can also add taped channels. So every input channel has a little bit of tape, and the drums and master both have these master tapes on them that are really nice. For the actual mixing itself, here, let me mute the vocals real quick so we can just have this going in the background a little bit. Nice. All right, so for the actual mixing itself, there's very little mixing that's happening on the tracks. Like the kick has a pull tech on it. These little voices channels are something totally, they're like little voice intro outros that I am EQing individually. Aside from that pull tech and a little bit of plate on his ad lib, that's all that I'm doing for the individual channels. The group channels are where I get all my heavy processing. So bass and drums are getting some added saturation, a little bit of compression. The chops are getting this EQ, and I have this EQ to essentially get the low end of the kick and the bass, not experiencing any interference from the chops. This high end, I don't know, the way it was sounding, maybe I was trying to eliminate a little bit of noise, but I think it was also to try and help get the chops out of the way of the vocals. So that's how those go. Everything else, just adding some reverb, and then it's the vocals. My vocal channels, I add a little bit of compression, multi-stages compression and EQ on the individual. So there's Darian's, there's Manny's, and then on the Vox bus itself, so this is like a bus of both of those, I have compression, de-essing, and then just a tiny bit of EQ to help them blend in the rest of the track. Let me turn on the vocals so you can hear those. Unmute.
Should abide. Heaven don't like ugly, get shoved to the side. They deride, they gon' make it out of hell alive.
What is this? I don't want that.
You say you usher some heat, not even kinda hot. This the fall of your house.
And here, to give you an example, let me disable this.
Your bloodline burst to the top. Bottom feeder, see the name for your next. Getting heat that it's our season next. Tell 'em it's that TRUEHOODS.
Anyway, the main goal that I'm trying to get out of mixing for vocals specifically, in a hip hop context especially, is to get it to sound clear, get it to sound like tight, but also to push it forward in the mix. So it has to sound like it's part of all the other instruments, but it also has to sound like right in front of your face. It's the most important thing in a hip hop song. So that's the goal of the EQ and compression that I have set up. And that's really how it all goes. On the master channel, I have a little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ. I have this God particle plugin that I just have a tiny bit of, and I'm not even using the limiter on it. It's just like a multi-band EQ and compressor. And that's really it. That's all we got going on here. So that's my process for mixing. Understand that I have this essentially applied across all the different tracks, and I don't know, it's an important process to make everything all sound cohesive and sound right. So that's this process. And really, that's mostly it. Obviously, the songs need to be written, and this cycle continues like 13 times over until you're left with an album. But I really appreciate you taking some time to listen through the process of making these records, and I couldn't be more proud of how they turned out. And after a year and a half of working on these recordings, I'm so excited to share them. Realistically, you're following what I do because you like super chill ambient music. But if you like what I make, it would be curious to hear what something totally different from me sounds like, then give 13 a listen. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and take care. Alright, holla. Hey, what are you doing? You can't be in my video right now.